were laughing at Santaco when they were talking about owning an airline. Why? Because that's what we are good at. We are good at bringing each other down. But we should have supported Santaco and said, yes, brilliant, let's do it. And yet we were saying, imagine Mageza flying an airplane. Who's going to support that? And yet, it's precisely what we need of black people. It's precisely what we need. We need to be able to compete.
I think let's just dive right into it. The reason why I wanted you here to speak to us today is because of the conversations that we were having, where we were diving into different cultures and different countries and how people would act and behave in a particular way, and how majority of them managed to think in a particular way, behave in a particular way, share the same values. And that was so powerful for whether it be the country or the race. And we came up with different examples like China and Dubai. You know, Dubai literally was just a desert, and now one of the wealthiest places that you can go on this planet. Dive into that. Let's touch on what do we need as a people to start moving together, you know, sharing the same values, sharing the same beliefs, sharing the same vision.
Remember, we are not living for the sake of living. We are living with a purpose. And what is that purpose? That purpose defines our culture, defines our belief systems, defines our religion. And by the way, what is religion? And how does it tie back to information? Are you aware that educational institutions are a form of religion? Are you aware that our culture, our traditions are a form of religion? They are a form of religion in a sense that we must believe in something. But in order to believe in something, we need to have a scapegoat. And a scapegoat, we need to be able to say, we don't want to live in poverty. Poverty becomes our scapegoat. We don't want to be enslaved. Slavery becomes our scapegoat. So firstly, before we define our ethics, before we define our culture, religion, we need to first define our end goal, our scapegoat. And that is the most difficult part, the easiest part, but yet difficult to establish.
I would think that I speak for majority of us when I say that the primary objective on most of our minds would be to alleviate poverty. We don't want to worry about basic necessities like food, shelter, something as basic as a car. I might not need a BMW. Just having imali transport. I don't want to have to worry about that.
So we need to define to what end. But that poses a number of challenges. The first challenge is that what happens once you escape poverty as an individual or as a family? You maintain that within the family. You maintain that within a specific race. Why? Because no one in this universe wants to go back and live in hardship. Each and every single one of us wants to get to a point of comfort. But a point of comfort is nothing but a byproduct of something far more greater. What defines our end goal is how united are we towards the same cause. If you think about how the economies are structured today and you extrapolate certain races from the majority and you focus and hone in on those specific races, you will begin to understand what I'm trying to relate.
Basically, money is a means to an end.
Correct.
Let's actually stay on that topic. Can you give me a couple of examples, or one or two, where this has been practiced or demonstrated for us to be able to make reference to refer to when we want to believe us coming together can actually make a difference? We can actually make or create the world that we desire or the economy we desire to.
What I want to focus on specifically is how certain races have managed to maintain social cohesion amongst themselves so that at least 80% of that specific race remain healthy, remain financially free, remain economically active. That is the end goal. So if you think about the Jewish community from the biblical times, their end goal was to establish economies where they can control and maintain those economies. They define themselves through financial gains. If you think about how the narrative behind how Jesus was betrayed, it speaks to a culture that had a specific end goal. Whatever it takes, we stick to that end goal, and we need to maintain that end goal as a community. If we have a cohesion amongst ourselves about one specific end goal, we need to be economically powerful. If you think about this specific race, the Jewish community, during the time of Hitler, Hitler didn't target them simply because they were Jews. He targeted them because they had a significant role to play. They were strong economically in Germany. And therefore, this is something that created a threat. If you think about it today in South Africa, this race is the only race that you will not see on the social media, on the political landscape, because they don't define themselves in terms of what they have. They define themselves in terms of what they control, economy. They control the economy in South Africa, all over the world, and yet they're below radar. You and I hardly talk about them because they stick to a specific goal. We need to be economically powerful. Even when we send our children to school, we send them to school for a specific purpose, to come back and run a business, to come back and create a product, to come back and innovate something, to come back and create new industries. The financial sectors, you find them. Manufacturing, you find them. Product design, product development, you find them. That is a specific end goal. It's specific, it's measurable, it's time sensitive. So if you take the black race, what do we aspire to? Find a way of living, a one way of living. Your son, your daughter, by the age of 12, they're already involved in the business, education from a household. My daughter needs to come with me to work to see what I do at work so that they grasp the concept of why they exist in the first place, why they are going to school in the first place. At the age of 16 and 17, they are introduced in the business. You and I see them. They come around, they spend time with us. Not simply because they have nothing to do, but because they need to understand what business is about. So that when the time comes for them to join the business, they understand the people, the culture, the product, the service. They understand the policies that governs the business. By the age of 21, they have a diploma, they have a degree. They are already coming into the business now to take some of that theoretical knowledge and transform it into an action plan. You and I become surprised when a 24-year-old becomes a CEO of a Jewish company. We become surprised when a 24-year-old is now the director of the business, is the HR manager of the business, is the operations manager of the business. They started from an early age. Each and every little thing that they do, they're building towards the end goal. And that something is what defines what he does today with his money. Now take a 21-year-old from a black township. Give him $1,000 and say, here, this is your money. What do you think will happen? How do you think he will go about spending that money? Why? On the one side, there's a culture that the entire family, the entire race aspire to. We have a culture that has no rules, has no basic goals towards life. All right. We want our children to grow and get to an age where they can go to a university, go work for a financial institution, an engineering company, and be independent. That is our goal. That is our end goal. If we had the same end goal, that we need to build institutions, higher institutions of learning, where experienced individuals such as yourself and myself can impart that knowledge on the youngsters. We need to build economies. We need to build research labs so that we can research the next big thing. We can control the next big thing. If we can build 1 or 2 economies in engineering, in manufacturing, in production, and the financial sector, a production company in Soweto. It is not to say that we don't have these things, but we have these things as individuals. We don't have these things as a community. We don't have these things as a race. You understand? Now, how can we compete with other individuals or with other races? We must be fair to ourselves. We created the problems that we see today. Part of it that we created by the systems that we come from. A specific race came from outside and colonized us, the entire African continent. And I'll tell you what my thinking is around this. It's because we don't have social cohesion. So when something happens to you and I know about it, I laugh and I walk away. It happens to me, you laugh and you walk away. It may be the exact same problem that we are dealing with, but due to the lack of social cohesion between you and I, we are not able to identify the problem because we are dealing with the problems in private. We are dealing with the problems from a superstitious position. We have not internalized what actions are required in order to get to a specific position. The structures. What structures do they have? What structures can we import into our own race so that we can set up a target towards that end goal? Ultimately, the universities set the standard, but the primary schools, the high schools, the lower education systems forms the basis of how do we get there. Now, if one of them is broken, every one of them is broken. If today we are comfortable with the concept of pass one, pass all. We have not identified the problem. We are still suffering from what is called conscious unknowing. We don't know what we know. We don't know that when we push Joseph to the next grade, Joseph in the next grade is going to struggle. And ultimately, Joseph is going to struggle in life. When I was young, we used to attend institutions where you're going to learn critical skills like your bricklaying, electrical work.
I wish we still did that.
That served two purposes. One, if you were young and you wanted to do a specific course in life, you can see whether you like engineering or not. So when you get to standard 8 or grade 10 at the time, you knew exactly what you wanted to do. But I'm shocked and surprised to learn that children, only when they get to grade 12 or grade 11, only then they're introduced to career choices on a theoretical level. We need more of those institutions. But most importantly, we need libraries in black neighborhoods. And we need libraries with new books. Even if they have old books, but we need libraries with updated information. If you go to a Pimville library and you're trying to find a book that was written 10 years ago, good luck. Buy books, read books, use those books, and then donate them to a library. It forms the platform of how we get to where we want to get to. And I think instead of focusing on financial emancipation, we need to focus on setting up certain specific institutions. We are setting up religious institutions where our people are locked in religion that teaches them that for you to succeed and for you to have something, you need to kneel and pray. Not that you need to stand up and act. Not that you need to study. You need to research about the thing that you want to achieve. Not that you need to go out there and talk to people so that the probability of success is increased. Increasing the probability of meeting somebody that can share your idea. Somebody that not only can share your idea, but can facilitate a transition from an idea to an action. What's ludicrous is the fact that we have money to change a street name, and yet our libraries are in appalling state. We need to get to a point where we make the right decisions.
We need a culture. I honestly believe that we lack culture, be it that we've forgotten our roots, how we lived, where we were from, or we don't pass it down anymore, we don't practice it anymore, whatever it may be. But we lack culture. When somebody says, what does it mean to be a black man? We don't have one response where somebody knows that, 9 times out of 10, you meet a black man, this is what you're going to get. We're all different. We scattered all over the place. Whereas if somebody asks, what does it mean to be Asian? What does it mean to be Chinese, Korean, Japanese? What does it mean to be American? They have cultural traits that are embedded in their identity that controls, dictates how they behave, how they move, what they say, what they do. Do they pray? How many times a day? To who? When? How? We have lost that. It's absolutely important for us to get it back. If not get it back, we need to create one that suits us going forward, that suits what we're trying to achieve, who we're trying to be.